with it. Oh, it's okay. I was really just experimenting with trying to find the right GUI toolkit to use with Perl, because honestly, I use Perl pretty much for everything, and I don't want to have to learn to use something else, frankly, to write GUI apps. And in particular, I was interested in being able to write Windows applications that look like native Windows applications in Perl, and for efficiency reasons, for power reasons, and for that effort, I even I guess towards the goal of at least being able to easily create applications on Windows, I even took a diversion and started looking at Lazarus, which is it's a Turbo Pascal IDE that it runs on Windows and it runs on Linux, and Turbo Pascal is portable everywhere. And the IDE, it's basically a clone of Delphi. And anyway, it's for rapid prototyping, creating GUI applications. It makes it really simple. I was able to really like learn how to use Lazarus pretty quickly, but I could not stand writing in Turbo Pascal. Not because the language, I guess, is bad. A lot of people really like it. It's because I've been so spoiled by Perl. I was just really inefficient with doing things. And so anyway, I kind of abandoned that, and I started looking back at WX widgets and Perl. And I felt like I was asking everywhere and everybody, what is, give me just like a simple set of things so that I can, start writing a GUI application using WX widgets and Perl. I didn't care if it was on Linux. I didn't care if it was on Windows or what. I just need a simple set of steps. And so my first minor success is this. So here in the on the document here, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. But my first success was figuring out how to set it up on Ubuntu, and it really is as easy as line number 1, which is sudo apt-get install libwxperl. And the other nice thing about using Ubuntu or Debian as a basis or a development environment for creating these things is that it comes with WxGlade. And one really nice thing with WxGlade is, although it's written in Python using the WX Python bindings, it can output in various different languages. And one of those languages is Perl. So I'm going to demonstrate this IDE later, but you can basically create your IDE. It's typical of any kind of GUI IDE that you would see, and then you can export it into Perl, and it'll give you like the subroutine stubs, and it's kind of smart. Like you can export the initial Perl, you can update it to some degree, and then you can continue to work on the interface itself, and then generate the new version of the Perl that would be supporting the GUI, and not necessarily overwrite your stuff. However, I'm just gonna say right now, I am not efficient with using these IDEs, because there's a way to export XML that is much more portable across different. I think it's a standard format, and I think some of the people listening to me right now know it way better than I do. And so once I conclude this talk, one of my goals is that people listening to it now, or who may view this later in the future, will be interested in developing a talk on different things. One thing is how to efficiently use a GUI IDE, in particular WxGlade. And then the other is going to be of how to bundle whatever it is we come up with into an install, like a typical Windows install experience, because that is another area that is, I'm just totally, it's like a blank spot in my mind. And so I'm going to get right up to that edge by the end of the talk. So that's really, I'm not even going to demonstrate what it looks like on Ubuntu, because if you want to get started with WxPerl, I recommend you just install libwxperl and then install WxGlade, and then just start poking around on WxGlade. It's pretty simple. I think everybody here would not have a difficult time, figuring out how to export the initial Perl. And then just by working through it, you can see how it works. So I encourage you doing that. Now, spoiler alert, I did get WxGlade working on Windows also through what I'm about to show you. So I will, at the end of this, open up WxGlade, create a super simple GUI, and then export it to Perl. So you will see that in action. Okay, so now we will move on to why do we want to do WX widgets for Perl? Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit, hopefully quickly, about why I want to do this and why I think this is good, in particular for Perl programmers. Okay, there is a huge missing gap or last mile that needs to be bridged for Perl programmers who can lend their talents to creating native window applications. And I don't know how many people they are like me, but I don't have the mental capacity. My brain is full enough with Perl stuff. I don't want to have to learn how to program on Windows, and I don't want to have to, learn Turbo Pascal. I want to be able to use the full weight of my, couple of decades doing Perl stuff and apply it and put it into a native looking Windows application that maybe a client I have needs for a web service I've created for them, or maybe they, it's just a fully encapsulated local client that they need, and maybe we, have mutually decided that we don't want to build a web application. And so I'm honestly tired of building web applications. I really would kind of try to focus on client local machine, not exclusively. I mean, I still have to put food on my table, but writing client side applications, I think being able to do that easily for Perl programmers would really give a lot of Perl programmers a competitive, at least some ability to sell their services that might otherwise go to a Python programmer or a Pascal programmer, somebody who is, able to rapidly create a Windows application. And since it's Perl, we really don't have to deviate too far away from, what we know and love, the whole Unixy feel of things. I mean, it's really just doing the bare minimum stuff to get what we know works on Linux and Unix so well translated over to Windows. And this is also not about, creating a Windows Perl. This is not about giving somebody a distribution, a Perl distribution that they can then use within their Windows environment. This is literally like, what is my goal is to find out what is the best and most expedient way for a Perl programmer who may spend most of their time in Linux to create an application that they can use as part of their paid service, professional services for Windows users, either as a service oriented type of thing, or as just a straight up program that they may want to create and then distribute. So that's really why I'm pursuing this. Talked about there's a huge burden for us to do anything cross-platform, and really my goal isn't cross-platform. It's just convenient that WX widgets is cross-platform. And personally, I kind of use some strong language in here, but I think it's borderline criminal that Perl programmers don't. I mean, we leave so much money on the table, and I'm not money hungry, okay, but I know that how freeing it was to go become an independent contractor, even though it was kind of scary. I know how freeing it felt, and I really just want to be able to continue to do that, have additional options and tools in my toolbox, and also just give that information out to other Perl programmers, because when I started trying to figure out how to do this, it was, the information was spread out all over the place. And I've got some bonus slides on some of the things, that interesting things I found as far as WX widgets on Windows, or WxPerl on Windows. I think we'll probably get to that. But in any case, there was no place that I could find where they just had some updated information of, okay, this is how you set up WxPerl on Windows, and this is how, so that you can have your have a programming environment to at least start testing your application, and on a most basic level distribute your applications, so that the person using them would not even know it was Perl. And that's kind of the goal, which is, I have here in red, is it's kind of like, one of these rules of Fight Club is, something I've come to really believe is, nobody really cares that what Windows applications are written in. I mean, I know that I'm proud of my Perl code, or I'm proud to say that I wrote something in Perl. And I think that Linux users tend to want to know what it's implemented in, but people who are using Windows, I don't think they don't care one iota what something is written in. And we shouldn't spend any time trying to tell them, or brag about it. What we need to do is, what I think matters is that we need to focus as Perl programmers on creating a very consistent and easy, smooth, like, workflow for us to use our Perl talents to generate, applications that run natively or look like native applications on Windows. And a lot of that has to do with not only using something like WX widgets, but also giving them like an installation, like an MSI file or an install file that they can just download and then double click and it installs. Okay. I don't know, like I've used some Python application. So it was, I was a cub master for my son's pack, and we had this Pinewood Derby, and that's like, I think maybe a lot of y'all are familiar with this, but anyway, it's like you race these like little cars down a track. Okay. And we had the track, and it's got these electronic sensors at the end where it can tell out of 4 cars which, the order in which they cross the finish line. And we have this really neat setup where you can connect the sensors to your computer. And then there's this program that most people use to interface with the sensor, and then it tracks, the times in which the kids' cars are coming in, and it does all the computations. It manages the heats and all of that. And at the end of it, it tells you who won, groups it into dens and all that good stuff. Well, that's this program is written in Python. And I'm not sure, I think it looks very much like GTK. But I was really interested when I first started using this program, because when you buy it and they give you a license key, and then you double click it. Okay. They give you an executable, you double click it. And I probably should have installed it just to show y'all. But what happens is it pops up this terminal window, this black window, and then it just starts running, and you start seeing a standard output coming down on the command window. And then the GTK, UI comes up, or the GUI for the thing, and then you use it. And then all the while, if you're most people probably minimize it, but I would keep the window up just because I was interested in seeing what the standard output was. But that is not a typical, experience for what people, I think, would expect from a Windows application. And it seems like nobody who knows how to do native Windows programming was interested in providing a solution for that. It's, definitely a very niche kind of thing. But my whole goal for this is, like, that's like some kind of janky Linux application. You don't know it's written in Python, but at the same time, that it's not a standard experience. I wanted to be able to give clients, or whoever, whoever would use the program I may write, whatever it is, that experience that they can either download a standalone executable and it would pop up as a GUI, or it would do the install. And so it's not just WX widgets is great because it gives you that cross-platform thing. You can do it on Windows and Linux. It gives you easy access to the native GUI library for Windows, which is awesome. So those are some big check marks there. But of course, it doesn't do anything for installation or giving that double click experience of starting up an application. So those things are missing, but this is a big, huge chunk, I think, that is important to provide. And it was really, really difficult to find how to do this. And in fact, let's keep going. In fact, I had a couple of starts where so I'm going to talk about one method that I got working on my own, and but it was not ideal. And I don't know how many of you work on Windows, even involuntarily, but there's this application called MOBA Xterm. And basically what it is it's this like dashboard thing built around Cygwin. So if when you install Cygwin on Windows, you get that white terminal, and then you can work within Cygwin to do what you need. It's got the package manager, you can install stuff. I think everybody's kind of gone through that. Well, MOBA Xterm takes that and it gives you like this it gives you a bunch of tools. Like it gives you like an SSH file explorer for remote servers. It's kind of like Putty plus Cygwin. But the main way that you interact with it is through this terminal, this shell. And when you install, you can install packages. Well, the packages are essentially the Cygwin packages. And what I discovered using MOBA Xterm was although it doesn't come, so when you first install MOBA Xterm, it does not come with Perl. And I think that's the same case for Cygwin. But if you go through and you want to install packages, you pull up the package manager. There's like a user interface to manage that. There's also, they implement their own apt command. So I guess they want you to feel like you're like, dealing with a real package manager, but in fact, you're just dealing with the Cygwin package manager. In any case, when you pull the thing up and you search for WX, the WxPerl is one of the packages, and you can install it, and it does the right thing where it installs the Perl environment and and a precompiled version of WX widgets or WxPerl. But what you find is when you run it, it's GTK2 based. And so that is a way that I discovered where you can, say you wanted to distribute something, you could give somebody, who you want to run this GUI, the Perl script, and you can say, okay, install, or you can install MOBA Xterm. You can tell them, okay, install these packages, or I guess you could give them a script to run within the terminal that would install WxPerl. And then you can say, okay, here, download my Perl script here, and then run it from within the window. So every time, not only do they have to install MOBA Xterm, but they have to, install the Perl packages. And then anytime they want to run it, they have to start MOBA Xterm up and then execute within that terminal the Perl script. And then finally you get this GUI, and then but it looks like GTK2. So it's like, I don't think it's definitely the Linux experience within Windows. And so that was kind of what I was going to be talking to y'all about this time, because when Julie and I first talked about doing this talk, I think this started because I was complaining to him about this, and he's like, hey, do you want to do a talk on it? And I said, sure, it might give me some motivation to do so, to get this thing done. And so in any case, that was kind of where I had ended it. After I did explore some other options, which I'll discuss at the very end, that did not pan out. And so I had resigned myself to running this MOBA Xterm, but that's not what happened. And first I wanted to, Zachy is on the call, and I just wanted to thank him profusely for helping me out here. All the steps that I'm going to be showing y'all, he figured out. And I didn't, and he taught me so much during this process. And so because of the work that he was doing, and he's got some his own reasons to be looking into this, we were able to, I'm at least able to demonstrate being able to provide a native looking Windows environment for a Perl script. And that's what I'm going to be talking about now. So thanks again to Zachy. I'm really just presenting his work here, which is, I never would have figured this out. In fact, as much as I've heard of MSys, I never knew what it was, or MWin or whatever. All of those things were very confusing to me. And I knew what SIGWin was, but the other things, it was just not something that my mind was able to get wrapped around, because there's different levels of providing, I guess, Linux or Unix compatibility within Windows. But what I discovered, or what I learned through this process, is MSys is it's like SIGWin, and Zachy, correct, or anybody who knows, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like SIGWin, except its goal is to be tied in as intimately as possible with Windows, with the libraries and just everything Windows. So it's not just providing a this environment where you can run Linux libraries. It's really trying to replace, whenever possible, anything Linuxy with what can be done with it natively through Windows. And I think through reading it, I think MSys uses a minimal amount of things that come from the SIGWin project. But in my experience with this here, I think that is, at least for me, it's completely replaced the need for SIGWin, or SIGWin as my first go-to for, if I want to do Unixy things on Windows. I think I'm going to go to MSys now, because, and I'll show you here, it gives you a shell, and it gives you a package system where you can install pre-compiled things. And it seems to be very actively maintained, and it's just really nice. And so what I'm going to do real quick is, I've got two windows here. And so this is just an example of the shell here. And I'll show you, it even does the right thing when you expand it out to the full size. You maximize the window, and then it's just, as a user, you can shrink or increase the font. It's got all the different commands you would want. And so if anybody you use SIGWin for something and you've not heard of MSys, I would definitely check it out. So I guess that's my plug for MSys. Here it is, Ming W64. Yeah. So anyway, I'm still kind of confused on how those two go together, but all I know is that this works. So what I'm going to do is, I've already gone through and set up this on my laptop, because it does take, if you were to follow all of these instructions, then it probably would take you about 15, 20 minutes to get everything set up. And so rather than having you guys just watch, stuff install, I'll go over the different commands. So the first thing that you're going to do, you're going to install MSys2. It's at msys2.org. And I think I have it already up here. But basically, this is the web page. And I really had never even seen it before. Maybe I had, and I just it didn't dawn on me what this thing was. But there's a lot of stuff in here that really, I think y'all probably know about. I don't know, but it was kind of mind blowing for me to discover this through Zachy, of course. Okay, so let me pull that up. Okay, so Zachy, confirming that there's multiple subsystems. Very good. Very good. Okay. If Julian, if there's a question, will you let me know?
Yeah,
I'll
try not to interrupt. You were just going crazy.
Interrupt me, because it's good to know that people are hearing me and getting the feedback.
I have a quick question for clarity. You keep calling this MSys, but is this the same thing commonly called Windows Subsystem for Linux?
No, no, we're not doing that at all.
So-
Although it would be interesting to see, since it's so easy to install on Ubuntu, I bet you it would be pretty, it might actually work pretty well to install WxPerl within this Windows subsystem for Linux.
Probably would work, and I could run some experiments and chat on that.
Yeah.
And update this video later.
Yeah, and I'm kind of jumping ahead here, but what I would like to come out with after this, or as a result of all of this, is and this is important for me, so I do have personal motivation to do it, is I'm not interested, like I don't have the technical skills to either do anything with Windows integration or manage a technical project. However, I am motivated to at least curate an up-to-date set of resources that give instructions on how to set up these things on Windows. And so, you know, if that was the basis of the project, which is just really like a clearinghouse of information on how to do these things, then it would be awesome to have. It seems like it would be a natural addition to have. Okay, we can even, you know, this is how you do it in the Windows subsystem for Linux. I think that would be great.
Well, we'll have you and I will work.
Yeah.
After this another time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Darren, the Windows subsystem for Linux, my understanding is it's basically it's kind of like a shell that Windows provides that is it uses some parts of the Ubuntu userland, at least enough to, I think, even be able to install packages.
You can install any type of Linux.
Oh, okay.
It used to be what you said,
Mhm.
but they've improved significantly.
Oh,
It's
nice.
basically just like a little VM inside.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
my understanding was that subsystem for Linux, it's basically a virtual machine inside Windows that Linux is inside, but it has much more but it's also very heavily integrated. Like lots of tight connections and whatever, much more so than Sigwin and whatever ever was. And it's something that Microsoft's really pushing as like a way to run Linux apps in Windows. But the way you described this MSys thing with the tight integration, it made it sound similar, and I wasn't sure if it was. So this is something else then.
It's probably as close as you can get without actually being on the inside at Microsoft and, like, you know, integrating it within the, you know, NT kernel or whatever it does. But it's
Okay, this is a third-party thing then. It's not something that Microsoft provides.
correct. This is as far as I know, this is third party. So, but yeah, so yeah,
Take
well,
another look, see if that's been updated. Exactly. Put a whole bunch of stuff down and do it.
no. I'll probably have to go through this later. If you see something that we should,
Yeah, I wasn't sure, you know. And feel
Very good.
free, if you guys wanna jump in and say something, I think he's open to be interrupted.
yeah, I'm open to being interrupted for sure. I can get kind of long-winded, so please. All right, so I'm going to go through these commands and just show you the end result. So when you open up the shell, or when you start the shell, first of all, I need to point out, Zachy was very patient with me. We were going back and forth trying to figure out why things were breaking for me, and it finally dawned on me after a while that when you install MSys, it installs different environments. And so the environment that he was using and I was using, I was just clicking any of these. I realized he was using Ming W64. I guess that's the compiler, because there's Clang 64, Clang ARM 64, Ming W, so Windows 32, Ming Windows 64. Okay, so that's making sense. So, you know, I think Zachy posted some information on the different subsystems. Well, the subsystem I'm using and he was using, which was my mistake because I was not using the same one, is the Ming W64. So when you install, after you install MSys 2, you want to go, at least to follow these instructions, you want to start the shell. It's the blue M. And I even have the a screen cap right here at the top. At the top of the document here. So that's the shell environment you want to start, and that's the ones I have opened up. So the first, so this is basically step by step. The first thing, it uses Pac-Man. I don't know. I guess it's the actual Pac-Man, but you would pass it different things that you need to install. So the -SYU, that just says, install these things and yes, answer yes to everything. And so what you're installing is git make, so like the make command, Ming W64 x86. That's, I believe that's the compiler. And then there's this 64 tool chain, and that is kind of like your build essentials on Ubuntu, or there's another one for Yum. It's like an install group. I forget what it's called. In any case, it's what gives you like the GCC and the auto tools and all of that stuff. And then here, right after that, this is a maintained MSys package of WX widgets. So it's WX widgets 3.0, and it's compiled with Ming W64 x86. And so that's when you install any of these, it's getting pulled down from the MSys package repository. So it's very much that package, oriented way of building up your environment, which is nice. And then there's OpenSSL that you want to install. And then finally, although MSys comes with Perl, we're installing a maintained version of Perl. And I think that this one is version 5.32, which honestly, like some of the, I was willing to be able to do this with ancient versions of Perl, even like 5.8, 5.10, 5.12. That is how desperate I was getting with just wanting to be able to do the GUI stuff. So in any case, this is the big mamma jamma install. Once you have your fresh MSys Ming W64 environment, you want to install all of those things. Okay. And then the next step is within the shell, you need to export some paths, or at least so the other thing is, this is a lot of this, most of this was from Zachy. Some of this is from my own invention, and probably not how he would do it. So if something looks dumb, blame me and not him. But what I was doing was I was exporting path and then Perl 5 lib. And I found that this was necessary so that you could set your paths correctly after installing this alternate version of Perl here. In any case, what I have here in this comment is put these export. If you're setting this up and you're just going to be using it, you want to persist these environmental variables, put it in the .bashrc in your shell, and every time you start your shell up, it'll do what you expect. The next thing, so I export these path and Perl 5 lib. Everybody should be pretty familiar with those. And then I install cpan minus, so because that doesn't come with it, and I just prefer using it. So that installs fine, and then everything else is straight from Zachy. This is going to be installing all. So okay, let me back up a little bit. When you build, the way that WX is supported within Perl, and Zachy could talk way more about the alien stuff. Like I don't know, I hardly know anything about it. But I do know it's meant for supporting, external shared libraries and building external things within Perl. It's just meant for like managing that external libraries in an automated way. And so what this is doing here, it's installing all of the dependencies of this alien WX widgets. And my understanding is alien WX widgets is what actually installs then all of the stuff that is needed when you actually install the WX module. That is as deep as I'll go, because Zachy could actually tell us how that works. Now, so you install the dependencies for alien WX widgets. It's a Perl module. And then you actually install Alien WX widgets. And that's what this next line is here. Now, I wanted to point out it is using, so it's using CPAN minus CPAN-M, but it's being pointed to this URL on GitHub. This command and then the following command to actually install WX widgets, these are patches that Zachy created to support even doing this. And so, Zachy, I probably should just give you the floor after a little while so you can just give us whatever info you want, because I don't even know exactly what is happening with these things. But I do know that when I step through this, it builds, and this has achieved one of my really, I didn't even think I would be able to get to this point where I just had a list of instructions, a stepwise set of instructions to where somebody could reliably on Windows install a WxPerl environment. And so that's what this gives you. And it's really cool. Now, I'm going to show you a demo. There's this, people have done so much work. I mean, between Zachy and then these guys, who have done this work in the past with WX widgets, there's just a tremendous amount of code that's written around it. And so, I mean, at some point, there was a lot of energy and a critical mass of people working on this, but I think it's since kind of just faded away, which is a shame. And hopefully this exposure will bring that back. But in any case, there's a module called WX demo, and I'm about to run it. But you can install it very easily once you follow the steps to get WX on there. And then there's the driver, which is WxPerl_demo. And when you run it the first time, there's this error complaining it can't find like the icon path or something, but we just comment that out in this the demo.pm, and it'll come up. So let me run this. So I'll show you. Let me get to a big screen. Well, everybody can see this okay? Let me know if you can't. Okay, so I'm gonna do WxPerl just to show you which Perl I'm on. So that's the Ming 64 Perl. And then version is 32, 5.32.1. All right, so here I've got, oh wait, 1 second. Let me get in the other window. Okay. So I'm in the my home directory basically. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run that Perl, the Ming WPerl that facilitated the compiling of and binding of the WX. I'm gonna use that Perl to run the WxPerl demo. And there's just a little bit of a startup, but this is it right here. All right. So I'm gonna make this a little bigger. Okay, let me I've got that zoom taskbar in the way, so I don't know. I think y'all can see my whole screen without it, but it's
Your stuff, but I can't see your widgets that are in your way. No, the Zoom widget.
oh, okay, but you can see the you can see the WxPerl demo.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is good not only for just demonstrating what WX looks like when set up natively, but also you can go look at the code and just see how they do things. And so you can see the on the left hand side, it's the actual demo that you can click to show, and then there's a source tab, and then the demo. And the demo, this demo itself is written in WxPerl. And so I'm just gonna have the demo tab open as I click through. So this is the banner window. I'm just gonna click through because rather than try and describe, if I see something interesting, I'll stop. This is like a data table or a grid. Got click boxes here. This one seemed pretty interesting as I was going through. So this kind of gives you a I guess fancy Windows what do they call it, ribbon control. Rich tool tip. Okay, so you can it looks like it's working really well. You can see that if somebody wanted to spend enough time in this, they could really do something nice and give a good user experience. And again, the other thing is, don't forget that this is supposed to be cross-platform. I don't know what this looks like in GTK2, but it probably looks pretty decent. Actually, I have run the demo, but what I'm saying is if you create, you know, a featureful GUI for Windows and then you wanted to run it in Linux, I'm assuming that it would probably still look good, is what I'm saying. Okay, so these are like controls. There's like checkbox. Anyway, I think y'all kind of get it. But it's got everything you would expect: radio buttons, slider. There's a slider. You can see in the bottom window is kind of the output. And I was actually thinking, so at the Perl conference coming up in July, I'm giving a talk. It's a follow-up for Perl OpenMP with the threading stuff. And I think I might try to create an app that increases the number of threads as I slide it across. And so I kind of wanted to test the try to catch my computer on fire, actually, is what I I don't think that would work, but it would at least say maybe I can get the fans to throttle. But in any case, yeah, so that's a bitmap. So it looks like it's, you know, it really grid. Let's see what here. Yeah, it looks like a, you know, like a spreadsheet kind of thing. And then it's got different windows. And it's got everything. Let's see. I think even drag and drop was working. Now, although I couldn't really figure out what the demo was supposed to be, I was getting some. Earlier, I was playing with this. Oh, wait, drag text bitmap from here. There we go. I don't know what that is actually, how I know what I'm selecting, but this is demonstrating that there is some kind of response to drag and drop. And so in any case, if you find like a widget, a part of the widget or control that you want to play with, you can always just go, you know, through the demo, you can always just click on the source code and just see what it looks like.
I don't know if you were using that wrong because the stuff at the top all looked like targets to drop to, but you seem to keep trying to drag things from there. The stuff at the bottom said drag from here.
Let's try that. All right. Drag from here, drop bitmap in tree below.
Yeah, because the top four all say, the top things all say drop.
Oh. Yeah. I don't know. I'm just guessing at this point. But
Sure did something once anyway.
Yeah, I made something happen. That was the important part. So these are the Perl modules that provide the interfaces to the underlying you know, the C++ classes that implement these things. Okay. So that's pretty much it as far as the demo goes. And I encourage everybody to, you know, when we're done to follow these steps. The next, I do want to open it up. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Or Zachy, did you want to take a few minutes and cover anything that I kind of stumbled over or appealed to you about?
No, I think it's fine. I mean, I can go into more detail, but I think you should finish up with showing everything that you want to.
Okay, I can do that. And then if you want to think about some topics you want to hit, I think that would be useful. Not to put you on the spot. You don't have to, obviously. Okay. So the next step here is, so we've got we demonstrate that WX widgets is working, WxPerl is working. It looks like what you would think it would look like on Windows. And the next step is, okay, well, how do you create something? Well, obviously you can write it from scratch, but one of the nice things about WX widgets that was appealing to me is that there was this IDE that exported Perl code. And that takes care of a lot of the tedious stuff. Because I mean, honestly, if I wanted to just do everything from scratch and do GUI from scratch, I'd probably just write like Perl TK or something. Because that seems to be more targeted towards just straight up like opening an editor and just writing a GUI. But with this, with the modern, I don't even know if they have they probably have a TK IDE somewhere. I've never looked for that though. Anyway, so once I got this working, I thought I had MOBA Xterm set up to do WX widgets, and that just seemed like inconsistent with my goals. So I endeavored to try to get WX Glade working within MSIFs, and it wasn't difficult at all. And I'm glad I just went through the exercise to do it. Really, all you need to do is install WX Python, which is, not surprisingly, available through a package. And so you can install it just with pacman -S and then Ming W64x86 and then _64 -WX Python. And Python has, kind of like with a lot of things, Python has a lot more people working on it and a lot more activity around these bindings. Although, so I'm okay using, I don't expect Perl to support its own, IDE. And I think it's more than awesome that this is available, however it is. So in any case, the first step to getting WX Glade running within this environment.
I don't know what you mean by don't expect it to support, but Perl does have IDEs.
No, I'm in a WX specific. I was just saying, like, it would be cool if like there was a WX Perl based IDE for WxPerl work, but at the same time, I'm not complaining. I probably shouldn't have said anything actually. Because it's just confusing. But so anyway, to install WX Glade, it is a Python program. We need to install the WX Python bindings and then download the tarball. Now it hasn't been this IDE has not been updated in a long time. But in the version we're using is 1.0.5. I don't know what version is on Ubuntu, but they look identical to me based on what just my interaction with it. And it does seem feature complete, or not, or at least it seems complete with what it offers. So even they may not be extending it or actively developing it, but it works. So the way to get that is you install WX Python. You need to install unzip separately, I discovered. And then you can download using wget and then this big hunkin' URL, and then just output it to wxglade.zip, unzip it, cd into the unarchived directory, which is going to be wxglade-1.0.5, and then you just run the Python script. And then what that looks like is, I will show you here. I'm already in that directory. And so that's kind of like the standard output spew I was talking about earlier, but not in a different context. So this is it. And I don't know, it's going to be a little, let me see if I can lower some of these windows so we can see what is part of this GUI and what is not. Okay. So. All right, so this is the main screen, and I don't know, I'm sure most people here have played with GUI builders before. This is basically the same. And let's see if there's any more windows associated with this. No, I think that's it. Let's see. No, there's nothing there. Okay, so I haven't talked at all about like concepts within WX widgets, and I'm not even super familiar with them myself. I kind of have just successfully built a few super basic apps just by clicking around and, running in the, basically blind, running in the corners, figuring it out as I go. So, but what I can tell you is, and I think this is probably similar with most GUIs, is it's kind of built up in layers where you have like a window object, and within that window object, you have a pane object, and like it can be like a split pane, or, have logically be separated into multiple sections like a grid. And then there's other ways to control, like layout controls and all of that stuff. And then once you have kind of your layout set up, then you could start dropping in controls, like, like a text box or a button or something like that. And so what I'm going to try to do here is just build up like a really basic thing, export to Perl, and then open up the Perl code so y'all can see kind of what it does, and then run it. And it'll probably just be a button that says hello world or something. So usually the application is the first level. There's literally nothing here yet. And so I'm going to add, let's see, wait. All right, top level widget. That's not what I want. Add a frame. Okay, so this is the frame, and you can see this is the preview right here. And or at least the visual object you can interact with. And then to the left of it, you see the hierarchy of GUI objects. So you've got the application. Within the application, you've got a frame. Within the frame, you've got a panel. Then you've got the sizer thing, and then you've got a slot within the sizer. And so what I'm going to do is, where'd you go? There it is. Okay, so let's see if I can just get something on the screen. So I just added a sizer. I'll just do like, I don't know, 3 slots. Okay, so now I've broken it up into three columns, and then I can put a button in one. I'll put a text box in the other, and then I don't know, I'll put another text box there. And then so I can kind of squish it on down. Now, one thing that you can do, let's see, I'm going to hit save. I will have to save it as Houston PM demo. And then, so what we need to do is now is I'm going to go to the top level application and then go to the pane on the left-hand side. And then this is where you can control the aspects of the application. So Houston, Perl. Oh, wait. I think I can't have spaces there.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. Single file. Yeah, let's just do single file. Okay, so by default, it wants to export to Python. So here are the things it can support. It can export to C++, Lisp, Python, Perl. I guess there's a preview option. This XRC is this XML format that I think can be, you can technically import it into, say, like GTK Glade. I think there's the original Glade was a GTK builder. But in any case, I think they all support this XRC format, and that might actually be like, if you do it right, my understanding is you have this XRC file that describes, it separates like MVC, like, so like it describes the layout, and then so you can manipulate the layout however you want without worrying about the actual, controller, GUI controller. And so I think that's where the XRC comes in. It's purely like a layout, like a extracted or extra code type of layout. Anyway, so we're gonna do Perl version. We're using WX 3.0. Keep user code. I'm gonna check that. I didn't realize that was not checked. But basically, what that does is, and I'll show you. So we're gonna generate the source code generated successfully. I'm going to have to pull up this window here. Let's see, where is the code? Oh, let's see. I'm gonna have to jump. I saved this on the desktop. This is one of those things you got to deal with where the MSys environment is it's not in your desktop. You have it's mapped. I guess the drive is mapped like it is in Sigwin, where there's no Sig drive, but here you just go /C, and then it's probably what user, and then I'm user. That's my username. And then, oh, okay. So this WX Glade, that's what we want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run that before I open it up. And so you see right here, I'll put it here for better. So you can see that looks pretty much exactly like what we had, even down to the dimensions that I kind of dragged everything to. Oh yeah, that's next. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's good. Good to know that. I think y'all are more interested in the Perl code. Okay, so this is the Perl code that gets generated, and I mean it's not terrible. You know, it takes care of. It's definitely like, you know, nicer. It's more important, at least for me, to be able to get all this tedious code, boilerplate code written. Based on how I want it to look, than like sit there and kind of tweak it, especially if you're like going to be doing a larger application, because there are elements on there that you can add like tabs, kinds of stuff. And you're not going to be wanting to do that by hand. At least I don't think so. So this is what the code looks like. If you note, I had the button. I think it's called button_1. So there's nothing in there right now. Okay, I'm gonna close that out. What I need to do is, so I want to do something when I click the button. And I haven't generated a handler or anything. So if I click on the button, so I'm clicking on the button in that hierarchy. I go down onto the left-hand side again. And I think that, again, this is probably going to be familiar to y'all who have messed with any kind of GUI builder. I mean, even like Microsoft Access had these concepts where you wanted to you have the events tab basically, and you click that and you have the event, this EVT button, that is the click event. And there's other events, but what you want to do here is you're going to type in the handler, and the handler is just the name of in Perl terms is going to be the name of the subroutine. So I don't know, handle button click bundle button 1 click. Okay, and then we can go back and generate the code again. So it updated the code. Let's open that up again. Okay. All right, so we're looking for sub handle underscore button, and here it is. All right, so this is it created this, and I'm going to modify it a little bit. So here it's doing a warn, and let me think. I'll just output something to standard out because that's the easiest thing. I don't want to warn. Let's see, I'm trying to think. So I think that these and WX Glade. So you want to, if you're going to be, say, going back and forth between modifying your code, generating code, modifying, like, and adding things, you're going to want to pay attention to these kind of markers here, because I think that's one of the ways that the code generation keeps track of things. So you can see up here, it's got begin. So here's a section, begin xglade dependencies. So here I can do like, you know, use, yeah, like something like that. And then, let's see, we'll jump down here. Okay, so I want to turn that, we'll just print the standard out, say handler is button 1 handler reporting for duty. Okay, and so we can run it. Let's see, Perl. Okay, and I'll click it, and it did that. It did the right thing. So button, one handler reporting for duty. And so I'll close that. And then now this is the test here is it's going to be if I'm going to delete this thing because it kind of is confusing things. Oh wait. So I do the sizer slot. I'm going to remove that slot. Okay. I don't know if y'all saw what I did, but I basically deleted that other text box and then I deleted the slot because there was like this empty spot there. Okay, now if I click on the text element and I go to the panel on the left-hand side, these are like attributes here, like like alignment and things like that, like center. Like here you got align, center, vertical. So you can do some fine grained control directly here with these attributes as far as its positioning relative to other things or within whatever panel or container it's in. But what I want to see real quick here is okay, name is text control _1. And what I want to do is so here you can affect the size. So it's a size property. What I'm trying to find out is where, oh, value. Okay. Initial value. So when okay, I'm basically setting an initial value for this text box here. And then I will go and I'm going to generate code. So I've got keep user code checked, which is it's not clicked by default. It generated the code. Now we're going to see if the change that I made was maintained. Down. Okay, so yeah, so that remained, and then the initialization of the text box is going to be right here. Okay, so you see where it says XXX initial value XXX. What we're going to do now is text _ control 1. So what I want to do is I'm going to modify it. So if I do self, it's text. Is that right? Yeah, it's text control 1. Now, I might be getting this wrong, but okay, let's see. Oops. Okay. Let's see if that runs. I'll need to regenerate code there. All right. Okay, it's not.
Values not yet.
I think it's a pin. Oh wait. It might be. Hold on. Oh, WX. See if that'll give me something. No. All right, well, WX text CTRL. Let's see. I'm eventually going to get there. So this Mark Dutzen guy, he's the one who has most of the, he's not the author of the demo, but he is the one who would maintain a lot of this stuff. Sorry, I should have. Okay.
Back to that code. Is it a, oh, someone's in a pen text,
Oh,
right text, probably.
what was it?
Zechariah said, right with a capital W, text with a capital T. Friends.
Okay. Thank you. Boom.
Yep.
Okay. So that it looked like that appended it or prepended it actually. But you get the point. So that's how you would interact with things. And it's just event-based programming from there. I mean, I know that's a gross oversimplification of it, but the whole idea is that you would create your layout and then generate the source code, and that that gives you kind of the scaffolding, and then you can wire it together.
Well, I like it, between those comments is where you stick your stuff.
Right.
Preserves it between changes.
Exactly. And so my first foray into this, and I wrote this what I'm about to show you on Ubuntu, but this and I did a blog post about it, and I couldn't believe it was so long. It was like in 2001, but in any case, it was just, I created a calculator, and it was like a super simple like post, but I got a bunch of comments on it. So, that got me thinking that other people were interested in this. So what I'm going to do is,
Exactly said it might be set value. So the right text.
oh, okay. I seem to recall that. Let's try that real quick. Okay. Set value.
Set value where S and B are caps.
Okay. All right. And here you go.
Yep, that looks right.
Awesome. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to jump back to my home directory and then run the calculator thing that I did. And it's kind of a dopey example, but it was enough for me to at least play with the buttons and figure out how you could basically just wire things together by handling results. It's like, I don't know, 14 times 8 equals 112, divided by, I don't know, 7. And then, okay, so there's no, it's not super precise, but yeah, it's just integers. Yeah. So I created this calculator doing that, and I've since lost like the WxGlade project file, but this is what the code looks like. And it's just this part is the layout of the buttons, like the grid layout of the buttons, and then this is, I implement like all the different operators: divide, clear. Oh, I had each digit is its own subroutine, so I don't know. I got it working, so I'm not. That was the first calculator I've ever written. In any case, what I also want to show, and I could have showed this in the other one, but so this is like the main driver code, I guess, or the main when you initialize it, you initialize the WX. It's under WX app namespace. I don't know what all it does for setup, but I'm sure a lot if you would look into it. It implements on init, which does some things, and it initializes image handlers. The frame, I have a my calculator package above defined with all of that stuff, and then under package main, it just runs the main loop. Yeah, there's an event loop. Now I haven't really dived very deeply into actually like writing an application. And so I've got an application that I want to write that will be making periodic calls, either like in a loop or whenever you press a button to web services. And the one of the gotchas is that like right now when this runs, I think it's just a single loop. So if you got something that it does within the handler that takes a while, your GUI does not update. It's going to be waiting for that thing to complete, and then it'll return back and do whatever updates to the GUI it needs to do. So figuring out how to do this like in a I guess a threaded way might be an interesting foray. But yeah, so that's basically it. And one nice thing is, or a really nice thing is, you can actually, if it's probably more convenient for people, at least for me, it would be to set up WX widgets on Ubuntu or WxPerl on Ubuntu, WxGlade on Ubuntu, and then just do everything there. And then periodically jump over to a Windows environment.
Because you could just carry that profile.
Exactly. And so you don't have to, you can use the MSys just as a runtime environment. And so let's see where we're at. That's going to be most of it. I showed the calculator. Okay, what's next? Okay, so the holy grail of this is that we could figure out, even if it was a set of, a lengthy set of instructions from start to finish, how to go from, setting up the development environment to writing to the app to, running it in Windows and then packaging it in Windows as either a standalone executable or an installable thing without the user even knowing that any of this was involved. So, I would, in my dreams, I would be able to just do this, even if it was tedious and multi-step. And at the end of the day, create the kind of application I need to create, and then just hand the person an executable, whether it would install or run it standalone, and knowing, and then have no idea that this is just like, this is Perl. Like, I'm not doing this for advocacy. I'm doing this so somebody can use this on Windows, and without even knowing, it's just another application to them. The awesome thing, I think, is that as Perl developers, I think that this opens up Windows to a lot of people who otherwise would not have even considered Windows as a target for something that they want to do for whatever reason. And so ultimately my goal is to give us Perl programmers a way to just hand somebody on Windows a program and just have them run it, like not download MOBA Xterm or MSys or anything like that. And so that's kind of where I'm stuck. And just to preface any conversation, because I'm pretty much done. I have looked at like ParPacker, and I've looked at the different options for packaging things, and I'm like super dense. Like, it takes a long time for something to get in my head, and so it's going to take me a long time to like go from where I am at now to creating that. So I guess my challenge is to everybody is, what I guess it would be to play around with this at whatever part of the process in this workflow, and maybe try and figure out a small part. And hopefully at the end of the day, we can kind of cover, y'all or whoever else would want to be involved. Because I do think I'm going to create like a GitHub organization, or even if it's just documents, or maybe, figure out where the best place to store all this stuff, and just have like this effort around being able to figure out what are the right steps to get produce this executable you can just hand over. how to, just keeping it updated. Because I think that would be super valuable for people. Yeah. Anyway, that's all I got. So y'all, we can have a conversation. Y'all can ask questions and go from there.
Open the floor to anybody who wants to ask a question. What do you got? What?
Maybe they got disconnected.
um,
Zach,
okay,
did
so
you want to? Yeah, you wanted to.
yeah, so yeah, great talk. I have never used WX widgets. The first time I used it was when I was figuring this out. And that was actually one of the reasons was that, it was, I wanted to install it straight off of CPAN. I believe I wanted to install the Perl module straight off CPAN, but then it didn't work for me. And I was like, what's going on here? And so I kind of gave up on it. But then I noticed, hey, and when you came and asked me about this, I noticed that Debian had the package, and they're like, up to date. Why is it working for Debian but not just straight off of CPAN? And so I looked at the Debian package, the source code for how they built the package, and they had a bunch of patches. So they had been patching it the whole time, trying to keep it up to date. And yeah, that's what I forked. I forked the Debian repository for their package, and then I applied some of the patches that were relevant, and then I added a little bit to specifically make it work on. I think you have to get rid of the @ because it thinks it's an email or a host name. And yeah, so I looked at the patches and I added what was necessary and then patched on top of that. It's all separate on branches actually, but that will give you what is needed to make it work here in MSys2. So it's not. I believe what Debian's been doing so far is that they've patched it WxPerl, the Perl module, from 3.0 up to 3.2 of WX widgets. And in this case, I was like, okay, I'm not gonna mess with the 3.0. I'm gonna stick with 3.0 on Windows, even though you can install it using MSys2. I'm gonna just stick with that. So I only kept those patches, and then I just patched just the build parts on there. So that's what you can see. I commented out some things. And the thing is that because MSys2 or something like MSys2 didn't exist on Windows back when WxPerl was under more active development, it was actually trying to build WX widget itself on Windows using a variety of compilers. So it was using the MinGW compiler, which is GCC for Windows. It was trying to use also it can build with Microsoft's Visual C++, MSVC. But it has all of that in there, and to build basically WX widgets from source. But we don't need to do that. MSys2 already has a package with it already built. So all I had to do was change it so that it could know where those pads were and not try to look for them somewhere in the it wasn't looking for them actually on Windows. On Unix machines, yes, it looks for existing WX widgets in the path, but on Windows, that alien part of it was trying to just build it and not ignoring that, hey, there's already a fully configured WX widgets library right here. And so what I would like to do, I haven't had time in the past month and a half since we were looking at this, was to reach out to Mark Dutzen, and I think the person who actually originally made WX widgets was Matthias Barbon.
Yeah, that's the name I've been seeing.
Yeah, to reach out to them and you're like, okay, well, and they have their source repositories on SourceForge and everything. Their SVN. I believe there's a way to upgrade to get it, but to reach out to them. Hey, what do you want to do for there's these patches from Debian. I have some patches. We can actually get this up and running again. And if you go to the rt.cpan for WxPerl, you'll see that there are actually a number of people who are using it. A bunch of companies, big companies too. They're using it and they're like, I want this to work. How do I get it to work? And they're not just on Windows, they're asking about it on Linux. And so it does seem to, there are people who want to do this type of stuff. So yeah. And I was going to say, yeah, on Linux, WX widgets does use GTK3 now. I believe it has several backends, but yeah. And yeah, so like what I've been doing in terms of GUI is I haven't been using WX widgets. I just use GTK3, and that's what got me started on all of this in the first place. Was that I wanted GTK3 to run in a cross-platform way because I didn't really necessarily care about that the widgets were native looking. I just wanted, build on this one framework and see where it goes, and that's what I've been doing. And I have gotten a little further in making installers for that, and I linked an example repository, and that builds the installers in continuous integration. It builds one for Windows and it builds one for Mac. The Mac one needs a little bit work because Mac uses code signing, but I haven't gotten to that yet. But yeah, it is possible to use PAR to get everything together and make an installer.
I'm interested in what you just said, because I've seen Part Packer and other people discuss Part Packers. We need to find someone who knows it and
yeah. So what there's also a Perl programmer who's in Australia has been working on a GTK application and does use ParPacker for it. It's called Biodiverse. The main developer there is Sean LaFan, and another thing he's been doing is he's been helping with improving Strawberry Perl. Strawberry Perl has an odd, yeah, it's the second link. Strawberry Perl hasn't been updated in a while, and he's been one of the people who's lately been helping, juggling all the different types of, does it work with this compiler? Do these libraries that it comes packaged with it, do they work together? So I'm not using Strawberry Perl, but I believe Sean is combining he's not using GTK3. I think he's using GTK2 right now, but he's been doing Windows GTK2 development with installers.
Oh wow!
With that, yeah. So he's done quite a bit on that. So yeah, there's a lot of options for GUIs out there. I've also used the TK before and stuff like that, but
very good. It occurs to me based on what you're saying. I mean, if we could just create a centralized place where people who are just kind of independently struggling with this can drop information, coordinate in some way, I would be happy to organize all the information into some kind of, cookbooks or, some kind of sane way for others.
together, and I'll sell it because we have several Perl on Facebook and Twitter, other places we could probably get some of this information out. What we just need to do is connect to these other Perl Mongers as well. Like,
Yeah.
we get this word out, we can find the people that think like you are and wanting to do this might be able to join your group.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
We have Will Braswell has a question. I'm sorry, Will. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm here. And Julian, just FYI, I believe I'm hearing you through Brett's microphone because you're muted.
Oh
So-
yeah.
No,
Right?
we had a lot of feedback issues.
Well, that's fine. That's fine. Zacky's like, super loud. Brett is regular and Julian is super quiet. So it's Mama Bear, Papa Bear, and Baby Bear here with the 3 levels of audio. I don't know how you can you hear me okay? Am I okay?
Yes,
Yes.
we hear you.
Okay, so I love this, Brett, even though I hate that it's primarily about free operating systems, but it's certainly you have very, very good points about especially related to sort of the business arguments for Perl that people in Windows don't care about what the language is, they just want it to work, and that's right. And if you're going to be an independent contractor, you will sometimes have people running Windows with Perl who want stuff done. So it is good to have that as an option. That's just my way of saying good job. I think that this is useful and interesting. So I did have a 1 or 2 follow-up questions and comments, if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
So the when you have that that GUI, the drag and drop thing that generates the output Perl code, does that allow you to like you said, you had each sort of like in your calculator example, you had each numeral as its own subroutine. So presumably it lets you write any arbitrary Perl code that you want somehow attached to things somewhere.
Yeah, it does some smart kind of things, I guess, with preserving any code, or rather it probably just restricts itself to only updating. I'm not sure how it does it, but yes, you can, as long as you click that box. Tell me if I'm going down the wrong rabbit hole here. If you click this keep user code, it does a pretty good job of not mucking with your code. And I imagine
show me where you type your arbitrary Perl code at.
Well, I think that
Yeah.
Is it in a separate .pl file, or is it somewhere
it's-
inside of this GUI thing here?
when you you know what you can do is so you can go. I was editing the code, so I was exporting the source, and then I was editing in the source that it exported.
Yes,
and
yeah, get that. And you were showing how each of the numeral digits had its own subroutine. So my question is, where was that? Where were those subroutines originally? You said, oh, that you had deleted one of the Glade workspace file, or the Glade something file.
Okay, so in the calculator example,
This is the output that it generated by WX Glade.
correct.
And
So
the numerals had their own subroutines. There it is right there. So did you write those subroutines?
Oh, no, these were the handlers. So let's see. If
Can you write any arbitrary Perl code? Or do you have to wait until after it generates this and then edit this directly?
that's a good question. I don't know. I don't know how what the
Well, I think that you do know the answer to that because, for example, like the operations that you're trying to do, 4 times 3 is 12 or whatever. Show me the multiplication operator.
see.
It starts off with the event skip inside of the handlers.
So where did that my calculator underscore multiply come from? You wrote that.
This was the handler for that button.
No. My calculator : underscore multiply.
Oh, I'm in that package now.
Oh, you're in that now. Okay.
So
There it is. Okay, well then, I do not exactly understand how one might integrate previously existing Perl code. For example, if you already had a multiply subroutine that was in Zacky's math library. I'm just making this up, but this is like it could be a real thing. Like I do not want to use your multiplication. I want to use Zacky's special multiplication routine. How do I do that? Do I have to get all the way to this point with the outputted Perl code and then edit that thing, that the subroutine we were just looking at, or can it happen somewhere, during your actual development here?
So, okay.
It
Go
looks
ahead.
like there's a code tab. It looks like there's a code tab where you can insert things.
There we go. Thank you, Zachy. That explains it.
Yeah, so I didn't, I remember when I was doing the calculator thing, I didn't use this thing, but this would be the smart way to do it. I was just editing the source code that it was outputting, and I guess maybe that's why it's not the default.
Oh, so you were doing it backwards by having it output something that was like a non-functional GUI and then adding the backend functionality?
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay. And my question is that's not a very good workflow.
No.
You want to be the logic as you're creating the GUI widgets that go along with it, right?
Correct. So what I would love to see, well, in addition to the workflow, the end-to-end workflow for generating like distributed or distributable applications, is just a good workflow for doing this. Because yes, mine's terrible.
Well, having the code tab, I think, answers 90% of my question. So again, thank you to Zachy for pointing that out, because if you can write Perl code while you're creating these GUI widgets and it's somehow attached to each piece of the widget, like when you click the button, it launches some arbitrary Perl code, then that does answer that piece of my question. So thank you.
So if you have everything properly modularized, you can just be, probably putting a few lines of, whatever you needed to.
I could do, use Zachy math multiply, and then, somewhere down when you click the multiplication button, it calls out to his multiply instead of to the other one or whatever. So that's
Right. You
all that I
probably want to use his
about.
divider code, because I just divide integers.
Well, you could divide by 0. That might work for you. So
Only if you're Chuck Norris.
okay, yes, and then it actually somehow comes out correctly. Well, that was good. That was my first question. So from what I'm getting is, yes, essentially you can combine this GUI code both before or at least during GUI development, and if you want to do it backwards after GUI development by editing that PL file directly, you can combine any arbitrary Perl code in with this GUI stuff. So that answers that question, and I am satisfied that this is not a bad solution since it allows you to do that. In other words, you're not limited only to some tiny little functionality that it prescribes for you. You could write any type of multiplication that uses, Chat GPT API or, something crazy that's not in any way related to anything else, and it would still be able to call that Perl code.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah. And this is just more into like how you would organize a larger GUI app. And I've seen this with the original Glade in GTK, but I know you could, from what I've seen with WX widgets, you can do this as well. But okay, so Glade for GTK, it outputs an XML file, right? Which is specifically a Glade XML file, and it doesn't do code generation the same way. It can.
Is it this XRC?
It's not XRC. XRC is WX widget specific.
Okay.
It's just, yeah. So, but XRC is built into WX widgets. So if you didn't want to do code generation, you could use XRC, and from the XRC, there's actually several tools that can handle XRC. So there's not just one WX Widgets GUI builder. There's several. They're actually listed on the WX Widgets website. But what you can do with an XRC file is output sub components or components of the whole GUI. And what you do there is say, like, if you have a different screen and you wanted to have the components for that, you can just load that XRC file for that screen, and it will load it at runtime and build everything at runtime for that screen straight from the XML, and then you can have separation of different components that way instead of having one giant either XRC file or generated code for the entire application. So that's how I've been organizing things. Like, I'll just give you a little hint of what I do in GTK is I have multiple Glade files associated with different components, and then what I use roles to load those in. So if I wanted to have a different functionality, I just use a role and I add it to my main application, and that will load and hook up all of the callbacks associated with that component. And that's one way you can make a more complicated GUI that you can just turn it off by removing the role.
Yeah, see, that's what I really need to see that kind of stuff in action, especially if I start doing any kind of like substantially complicated app. I'm probably going to need
I have the source code for this application I'm talking about on online, so it's actually on cPanel already. But I've been slowly working on getting it so it's easy to install and making sure all its dependencies are easy to install. I haven't touched it in like 2 years now, so I want to get back. I
remember you did a Perl, one of the Perl conference in the cloud talks on.
Yeah, that was what it was. It was a PDF reader.
Yeah.
So I did have one or two other follow-up questions still.
Go for it.
Your sort of Indiana Jones final handoff there at the end was saying, "Hey, somebody else, please create a working package, distribution mechanism." Well, I hate to tell you this, but I mean, this is it. It's us, which means it's you, but with our moral and technical support, right? I mean,
right.
If there was anybody else, they would have either already done it or they'd be here, already volunteering to do it right now. So I don't own Windows. I never will. I'm not going to be able to help with that side of it, but I do have a few other parts that I can help with, and I do want to encourage you to continue on this path. So the thing that I can specifically help with that I sort of know for sure is testing stuff in Linux, because that's all that I have. So I am interested, if you ever get some demo application running where you have not lost the original source code for it, then maybe you need to rebuild that calculator from scratch, but sort of do it using more modern Perl, and we can have you on Perl Town Hall to give a demo of that, but not in the state that it's in right now. So anyway, I'm very happy to again help test that in Linux when the time comes, just so you can have another person saying it works under of an X Ubuntu version whatever or something, right? Or not, and then that's also valuable to help debug it. And also what I can help with is that once this is actually to some kind of point where it's production beta ready, at least something that's stable enough to do something with, then I would probably be interested in creating my own little. In fact, I've already written some Linux only R Perl demos, and I'm working on other sort of AI demos with Zachy and JNAP and lots of other cool stuff like that. So I would totally be willing to make a few little demos myself once it is more, again, stable and mature than it is right this moment. That brings me to the theme song. Dun, 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 dun. It is Brett. Brett is the one who must do the thing, so you get to be Indiana Jones. So you need a really cool hat and a leather jacket. Yeah, you're gonna have to set up, like you said, some sort of wiki or repository so that we can have people collaborating about it. Maybe just GitLab is enough. I don't know. The simpler, the better. I'm not going to use Slack, but if you use IRC or GitLab, I will. My question for you is, what is truly required to get it to a production beta stage, like where that I could write a little demo program of whatever I want, like I said, some arbitrary Perl code, and have that be able to be packaged and installed by some totally random Windows person out in the interwebs that I don't know or have to know or care about, because they can, like you said, they can just download something and it runs. They can download some exe file and it has the same look and feel as, the install shield wizard or whatever the latest thing is nowadays, because Windows 98 was the last thing I used. And and most importantly, I get the same thing for real operating system, so I can have it in Linux, and if someone else has BSD or, gosh forbid, some other Macintosh or what have you, they can also have it working for them. So
Right.
What are we truly missing here at this point?
Well, I fully intend on continuing down the path. I think the next step for me is probably looking at Parpacker. As far as making progress in terms of organizing. You mentioned GitLab, but I probably will do something on GitHub if that's okay. And
yeah, their ownership structure is absolutely horrendous.
yeah.
That's yet another dig against Microsoft. I have an infinite number. It's quite a large supply. It's never ending. So every time you bring up something that you want to do that's on Microsoft, I will be prepared with a barb. To be fair, you already know that, but
Well, maybe I'll bring up some virus vaccine.
So for other people to reach out to, the people who are doing WxPerl, those are definitely at the top, because they have, I believe they had been working on a lot of packaging type of things that were appropriate. Yeah, those type of things. Yes, they were working on these things back when, I guess, I don't know if they're fully the same nowadays, but they were working when they wrote them. So they might need to be updated, or another alternative approach. Now that MSys is around, it might be easier. Certain things might be easier. And the other thing is, reach out to the people on who do use PAR, because there are some people who use PAR for GUIs right now who are using PAR. I've seen from the mailing list that there are people that are doing that. And in particular, I was using GTK, and there's a GTK Perl mailing list that I've met people through there that were also using GUIs on Windows, or writing GUIs on Windows. So yeah, those are all points of contact to start with, and then And then the other things, there's all kinds of other things that, you know, would need to be addressed for like a full professional, you know, developer thing. Is like, for example, how do you integrate internationalization, localization with the GUI builder? Because you're going to enter in strings, you need to have those be, you know, translated. I have like one version that I've done for GTK in my example thing. I just wanted to, you know, show that these can all be packed together and made internationalized. The other thing, I just lost it. Yeah, I just lost it. But I don't remember exactly what it was. But yeah, so you know, just showing people the workflow maybe is like you know, as videos, because some of this is visual, right? And so you don't know, like, okay, click on this and you'll this is how you can make an application from scratch, that type of thing. That's what people need.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So yeah, I will commit to at least starting I guess a, you know, a nexus for collecting information. Hopefully that would serve as a point for everybody who's doing this kind of thing to contribute what they can. I'd be happy also to do some short videos and post them on YouTube or something. So this is all good stuff. I really appreciate all the feedback. And
So I still have one important question that I'm unclear on, and sorry, but it's a very basic and important question. And you mentioned it, but I didn't really get an understanding. Does any of what you've described, and I know you said it doesn't, but it's got to correlate somehow. How does this correlate to getting people a distribution of Perl itself? Because if you're giving them like a PAR packer or something, is Perl distributed with that exe? So if they downloaded several exes, they'd be getting several different versions of Perl? Or are you needing them to already have Perl installed on Windows?
no, well, my vision is that it's all self-contained. So if they had five different programs that were all created in this way, they've got five different, you know, isolated pearls that are behind the scenes when these programs
Okay.
are running.
Oh, the way that PAR Packer works is it bundles libperl into the same exe as it is, and it also bundles. Well, you can use PAR Packer several ways, but it can bundle in other files. It's just a self-extracting zip. That's not how I use it, though. I just use it to bundle the script file and libperl, and so it doesn't have to extract anything out. It just starts running, and then on the side in the installer, I have all of the modules and libraries, so it doesn't have to extract out everything that way. That's how I use the installer, so that you get a small file that's just the exe.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that is another concern, is the size. So that would address that.
Would you be interested in putting together a talk on what you just said?
Sure. I mean, I gave a talk. Sorry, that talk didn't really actually go into technical details, but yes, I could give a talk on the technical details of building an installer using GTK3. Because I wrote code that does all of this, because I've done it by hand, so I needed to automate it. So
Right.
I wrote the code to do that. There's a lot of like small details that I had to learn along the way when I did that, and writing the code to like get it all together and make it run each time basically solidified that, so I don't have to remember it. So yeah, I can talk about that, like why did I make that decision and that type of thing. Yeah. Though, like for example, like for MSys2, there's a way of getting the files that are associated with the particular package using the package manager, and you can spit out that list of files, and then just copy that list of files, copy that into a new directory where your installer the skeleton for your installer will be. And then once you've done all of that, you have all the files in the right layout in that new the space for your working installer. Then you use an installer tool to, put it all together and put it into a single installer, which will extract later on when the user downloads it. But that's basically it. But
Okay.
I mean, yeah, but
So what you've got is something that interacts with MSys, and you packaged MSys with your executable somehow?
yeah, a subset of MSys, just
Okay.
the ones that are the package that the package needs, or
Okay.
that basically my code needs.
Right.
Yeah. But getting into the details of that is, that's why I had to write the code for it, because there's like special things that you need to do. I don't know if it applies to WX widgets, but for GTK3, it needs like some updating to, get all the paths right on install and things like that. And so all that details, I could talk about that. Yeah.
Very
And
good.
then doing it with the Mac, because I did it with Mac too.
Yeah, and I mean, I remember watching your talk also. I don't remember the details, but I do plan on going back and watching it again.
Yeah.
And I think that having a centralized place would also, like, for me, maintaining some kind of centralized place would start revealing all these gaps in knowledge, and people could come in and, like yourself or whomever, and hopefully at least provide some basic detail.
Oh, I remember the second thing that we would need to talk about is BDD, like something like Cucumber to do GUI testing.
Okay.
Because once you've written a GUI, you want to make sure that all the buttons, as you're going through development, just like you would with a website, right?
Right.
You want to make sure everything goes to the right place. You're setting off the right handlers and things like that as you're developing. So those are two different things that, because I have not yet seen a very good GUI testing workflow on with Perl yet.
And Cucumber, is that like a generic, like a Windows based?
Oh, no. Cucumber is like a specification language, and there's a implementation of it in Perl.
Okay.
Yeah, so for doing behavior-driven development.
Oh,
So thank you, everybody who talked today. I'm going to have to drop fairly quickly. So if there's anything really important, I can wait a few minutes, but then I'll want to sign off.
Oh, I mean,
I think we need to come.
yeah, I think we're wrapping up. I did want to point out what I've got shown out right here. I discovered these when I was deep diving. Real quick, Citrus Perl, it's a way to for my playing with it, it's a way to create. It is a Perl distribution for Windows that comes with WX widgets already kind of compiled in, and I think it's been updated. It's up to, I think, Perl 26, I think. But in any case, I found it because I was looking for a packager for WX Windows or WX widgets, and this Mark Duden guy is the one who put it out. And but I discovered it's basically for creating modified distributions of itself. So it's a Perl distribution with WX widgets, and it allows you to also generate a modified version of itself. And it even gives you, like, you can set the splash screen or the logo, or you can do some stuff. So I guess you could kind of use it to distribute applications, but it's also huge. And then the Kava packager, this thing is kind of strange. It does exactly the packaging that Zach had mentioned. At some point it was working, and I've tried even like starting up I haven't tried to set up a Windows XP machine, but I tried trying to get this running on Windows 7. But I think it probably would work on XP. But the whole idea is that it generates you pointed at source code, and it's from the WX widget, the WX Perl guy, Mark Duden. and it scans your code, it looks for dependencies, and then it kind of puts everything together. And at the end of it, will give you an exe for Windows, supposedly. I mean, I'm sure it works in the right circumstances, but the weird thing about this is it looks like they tried to delete it from the internet, because I found references to it in well, a mailing list, and then that led me to Internet Archive, and I was able to find only one link within the Internet Archive that led to the installer. So like this is something you would install, whereas a Citrus Perl, it's like a big zip file, you unzip it and you work within it. This Kava packager is an actual application.
Zach, do you want to mute? We can hear you typing.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's
With-
okay.
Like keyboards.
What cherry switches are those? Just kidding. But anyway, so the Kava packager is also interesting, and I do want to point out I emailed. I think we should all try to get, whoever wants to should try and get in touch with these guys. But I did email the Mark Wooten guy, and I have not heard back. But I was basically I was trying to find out information on why did he at one point he had a he was maintaining Citrus Perl, he was maintaining his Kava packager. There was a Google mailing list that's still up, and he was doing regular releases and tracking whenever Perl would release and would update it accordingly. And then at one point he created a consulting company, or at least put a website up for it, to do specifically WX programming for Windows, like basically full service or consulting, whatever. And then at some point it just went away. And so I don't know if he just retired or got fed up or got hit by a bus. I just don't know what happened to the guy. And so I did try to email him. That is the domain that is still up, but just blank. It doesn't show any information, and it didn't bounce back. So that's at least a good sign that he's probably getting the emails. So Zachy, I don't know if you reached out, you said you were going to. I would definitely encourage that. And we can, I'll keep everybody up to date, and I'll think about how best to, communicate all this information and just create a central place that people who are, kind of groping around in the dark to do what we're doing, we can all come together and just get a really like clear, unified picture of what, and even for GTK3. I mean, this is not just WX Windows. I think if we could just figure out multiple ways to do this thing on Perl, for Perl on Windows in particular. I'm not against Mac either, but I think Windows is the real challenge here. Just having a coordinated repository of information, and so you can go from step 0 to downloading an exe. I think that we would, and also, I mean, yes, this will help out existing Perl programmers like us, but I think it would also, if we made it even just stepwise a clear process, I think that would probably start attracting more people necessarily just to Perl, because maybe they want to do something on Windows, but and they may just be called to do it in Perl. So hopefully this will have a good good net effect overall.
Let's table that because we need to call this one quits. But this is a whole new set of, excuse me, we'll call it quits here, but that's a whole new set of talks and projects that I think could get exciting and people could be excited about. So we'll follow up on that, but I'm going to have to call this. I appreciate everybody that's come. We normally meet on the second Thursday of the month, but I did this particular event because I wanted Brent to have a comfortable way to present his work here. So have a nice night, everybody.
Great job, Brett. Thank you. And Zachy too.
Thanks.
Thank you to both of you.
You're welcome. Thank y'all. Looking forward to seeing some of y'all at the conference, whoever's going to be there. So
I'll be there. Thank you, Julian, for hosting.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.
later.